Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday. Woohoo! It is another solder sesh, and I am super excited because Amanda Preskey is here. She is of both Circuit Breaker Labs and Because Science. And I'm super excited to have her here. She does amazing artwork with recycled PCBs, so you can see some examples of this right here. And she also does some really cool like framed wall art with like scrap PCBs. And she's also opened a retail store in DC called Beyond Because Science. Keep on wanting to say Beyond Science, but but yes, Because Science. So welcome to the show. Thank you for coming
so
on.
much.
Yeah. And hi Bob, how's it going? It's good to see ya. After a little break we had last week so that I could go to a fiber and yarn convention.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I would love to hear how did it all start? How did you get into science first? I guess that's a good place to start.
Growing up, I loved art and science. I filled my course schedule with as much of both as I possibly could. Of course, there wasn't even enough room to do everything I wanted to do.
Right.
And when it came time to go to college, art school was low on the list in the family. So I became a chemist instead. Chemistry was one of the sciences that, at least when I was 17, I thought I really liked. I definitely do. It was the right science for me. It's a very hands-on, maker-centric science.
Mhm.
You make stuff. It's about as makey as you can get.
Very fundamentally makey, you know?
Yeah, like you can't really see what you're making, but sometimes you can. Sidebar here, I used to be really good at using a transmission electron microscopy, I guess, microscope in order to image my stuff because it was too small to use a light microscope with. So
Wow.
I could see what I was making, just not directly with my own eyes. A little
That's
bit of
cool.
assist there. But I have been making stuff since I was a teenager and selling it on the side. And it wasn't until undergrad that I started getting a little bit more sciencey with what I was making. Because that's when I started to find broken lab equipment sitting around our labs. And I was like, hey, I wonder what's inside. What does this look like? That's the curiosity in me. And discovered that I really, really liked the way circuit boards looked. So I started just seeing what I could do. And because I was also doing craft shows at the same time, and Etsy was just getting started around that time as well, I had a lot of feedback and people liked it. I think I was kind of shocked because up to that point, I'd been making other jewelry, beaded stuff, resin stuff, and it was like, okay. But when I started pulling that out, people are like, okay, this is neat. So I was very, very compelled to keep seeing where that would lead.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up going to grad school for chemistry because I was getting my bachelor's right around the recession. And I didn't think I was going to be able to get a job. I didn't go to college thinking I'd get a PhD. I didn't even know what it was or why you would even want one. It wasn't part of my plan.
Just
But STEM fields usually end up being paid gigs. So I was like, well, what's the harm in getting an education and getting paid to do research at the same time?
Yeah.
So my business kept going and going and going. And then when I defended, I was like, I got a business here. What do I do? So I decided ultimately, because I had built a solid following online, I sort of figured out how e-commerce had worked, and it seemed stable enough that actually going the route of being an entrepreneur instead of continuing on and becoming a professional laboratory researcher seems like the better option for me. So that was about 6 years ago. So now I've been operating Circuit Breaker Labs, and now just this last year we became Because Science. So the whole Because Science part of the business is all shiny and new. The whole point behind that was that the last 5 years, my work had been getting even more and more sciencey. So when I got routers, which are those big black boxes behind me, it really opened up the possibilities for what I could create. So I could go from, say, just making circles and covering them in resin to doing actual like cut out pieces and art. So of course, because I'm a nerd, I started making Erlenmeyer flasks and DNA and things like that.
I
And then I was
love
like,
them.
this is so much more science than just circuit board.
I love it. I love, yeah, I love the variety of stuff you have in the store because I mean, there's basically like every kind of science represented. You know, there are, I believe I saw some dinosaurs at some point at one point in time, and so there's biology represented. There's obviously chemistry represented. I think I've seen atoms, and I mean, you've even done stuff that maybe like isn't sciencey, but I want to say you've done like names and flags and all sorts of things. So that's super cool.